when I come back. Okay? So where do you see it? You see it a lot. The example of Hans-Peter yesterday with the exercise he showed you in the video for the serve of this player, jumping for the serve, that's some plyometry. You work on the explosivity, you work a lot with this for the legs, okay? For the feet actually. So everything including jumps and implying jumps are basically the peak power. It's something that you do in a short period of time. You don't need to do that for 30 minutes, otherwise you'll get your player injured. It's a short period of time, but very explosive. After peak power, speed strength. Later we'll go for strength speed. Speed strength is where, as you see on the picture with Sharapova, I found this picture on Google a few days ago, and that was the perfect example because you start getting into those tennis-related movements that makes a lot of sense for the players, and that's the most important. Because a big task for you guys when you coach fitness, when you do a fitness, strength, conditioning session with your players, is to make sure they understand why they're doing the movements. And me as a player, I remember it being very difficult when I was playing US college and at 6 in the morning I was in the gym with an American coach yelling and asking me to do squats. I was like, oh, or pushing his car one day, a big SUV. So that was what we saw earlier, pushing sleds. His thing was like, I'm in my car listening to the radio and you guys push my car. Oh, that was definitely teamwork right there. That was heavy, that was good team bonding and all. But difficult for us to realize at the time, okay, how is this actually going to help my tennis? It is, I just showed it. It's part of the building, you get your body ready for heavier loads. But once you get into the speed strength, the player understands. When you get the medicine ball and you do those movements, I'm open stance, I'm hitting a forehand right here. So that starts making sense for the player, and that's the best. When players understand the movements they're doing in fitness, how that movement is going to help them on the tennis court, you're winning. That's where it makes the most sense. So with the speed strength, you can do that. Basically, you have some weight in speed strength and you try to throw it as fast as possible. You can do it on the lower body, you can do it on the upper body. You do it in tennis a lot on the upper body. It's the opposite of where I'm basically pushing some heavy loads. Bench press, I'm going from here, I'm finishing here. I'm not going further than this. But in tennis, you go further than this. I don't stop my forehand here. I have to go through with the forehand. Even my body has to move forward. So that's in speed strength what you want to work on with the players. Getting used to use this body, even actually this exercise that Hans-Peter showed, I think, yesterday with the rackets, the little weight on top of the rackets to help, you're there, you're in the speed strength. I put endurance there. I could have put endurance in lots of places because endurance is obviously needed. You can actually work with this. I'm not going through the definition of endurance, I'm sure everybody understands that. But it's obviously the most important for your players to be able to go through a long season, to go through a 3-set match or a 5-set match if they have the luck to play Davis Cup or Slam one day. But you can work on it definitely in the preseason. Even before doing the maximum strength work, you can totally and get the body ready for heavier loads and all. But the reason I put it right after speed strength is because you can do endurance within those exercises. Everybody knows the kind of circuit training where you have different stations and all that. That's how we'll work this afternoon. We'll go one step by step, if I'm right, Maxime. But on the court with like 10 players, because I know in India often it's a challenge, you have a lot of kids on the court. You can go through stations like that. And how can I make these players work on endurance when I'm just having a circuit training? Any idea? Anyone? No?
You give them smaller breaks.
There you go. Right answer. You gave them more volume, more reps. You give them less weight if the exercise involves weight. Actually, no weight, even better. And as Sir just said, small breaks. And then the stamina will grow. I'm going for 30-second work or like 1 minute work. I only have 10-second rest. And then I'm going again. Endurance work, right here for you. I wanted also to come back on a thing when you work on endurance. So that's a very good way to work on endurance, and we do it a lot that way. But another way is, of course, to go running, to do some cycling. I personally love running. I was supposed to run with you this morning on the beach, but I woke up late, sorry. But I promise you I love running, I think you know. Two more. But I know that lots of players nowadays don't like running. Also, I'm not talking about the lazy ones, I'm talking even professional ones, which are definitely not lazy. Because it's actually, tennis is already traumatizing on the knees, on everything, and if you add some more running, you might as well go on the bike and be easier on the knees. And I called no later than 2 days ago a good friend of mine, Fabien Le Faucheux, who's the fitness coach of a decent player, Daniil Medvedev, just played US Open final. And just out of curiosity, I asked him, well, while I was finishing actually this slide, I wanted to know, how are you guys working on endurance? And he told me, barely any running, cycling, and within the circuit, within the training, smaller rest. That's what this guy does, and he has a decent fitness, I guess, decent endurance. So really, if you guys have that, have a bike in the gym or something, you have access to that, it's a great way to work on endurance. Not just put your players on the bike for 30 minutes and let them go as slow as they want, that would be a recovery at the end of the day. But you know, go for sessions where you ask them to go maximum speed for like 30 seconds and then 15 seconds rest and so on. Like that you can build the stamina and you're sure that the player cannot get injured on a bicycle. Well, on a fixed bicycle in the street in India, I'm not sure. No bicycle in Mumbai. Because you'll get injured, you might die actually. Gosh, what a complete wrong advice. Go on a bicycle in India. Speed. So speed, you're definitely on the court. I mean, you can definitely do it on the court. Speed is the ability, of course, to move as fast as possible, to move your body on the court, which is needed. Be aware of one thing, I wrote it. If your body is too heavy, and I'm not referring to a fat body, I'm referring to too much maximal strength, too much bodybuilding, then too much air resistance, and you'll be slow on the court. So you don't want that. You don't want to be too heavy, of course. And but it can be done, and that's very important, at the beginning or at the end of a session. Of course, if you work on speed with the lower body, better at the beginning of a session. At the end of a session, and your player is already really tired, and you ask him to go for speed, that's how injuries can come. Now, if you work for upper body, agility, because speed is not just running like this player is doing on the court as fast as possible, it's the coordination, eye coordination, agility, reaction time, work with the ball, different things. That you can do at the end of a session. With speed you can have a lot of fun. It's actually usually what players or young players like the most, because you can do some competition, you can include some fun in the practice with this. Few advantages. Those are the ones I could think of for this method. You obviously covering all aspects of the physical preparation, everything from strength to coordination, agility, endurance. You really cover everything with this. You getting the athlete, as I said at the beginning, ready for the whole year, for the whole season, and not just to peak at some point and then drop and having to come back. You have the flexibility inside a session to work differently on different players. No later than a week ago at the academy, I was noticing a practice with Maxime and Jason, our American, the other fitness coach, where one of our players, actually from India, from Delhi, Samer, was definitely needs to get in better shape, a bit slimmer, a bit more endurance. So in the whole exercise, at the end, they went on the bike. And everybody was doing a recovery on the bike. But Samer had to go for 1 minute full on, 30-second rest, like that for 10 minutes. So everybody was doing the same, was on the same station at the same time, but the coaches were able to tweak a little bit the work for everyone, adding some endurance for one guy. And so that really gives you some flexibility inside your session, especially if you have a lot of kids. And then with this, you can go back at any time of the season on something. One player you feel after a few matches, you're in March, in the middle of the season, someone is lacking a bit of speed. Okay, we'll emphasize a little bit all of this. But think of this method as something where throughout the season you can have a focus on the different steps that I've shown, but you're always working on everything together. So the graphic I showed at the beginning like this, it's like a big red dot on it. The focus is moving, but that red dot is still covering all of it. So huge red dot over it, it's covering everything. You're always working on everything throughout the season. And Of course, the same methodology for everybody, so that's a big help because you can apply it to all ages. You'll see later on the court that you can use bends, which is, we think, amazing because bends obviously can have some resistance, more or less, depending on which bend you use. But you don't put heavy loads, and it's good for any player, but very good for the youngsters because you don't want to put weights on youngsters. For the weight, I can't give you ages because it depends on the body type. I've seen 15-year-old guys that were like stronger than me, but I also see 18-year-old guys that look like they're 13. It depends also on the body type and everything. Last thing, you can implement this method on the tennis court. I know not everyone has access to a gym, not everyone has access to all the training facilities that we do. And that is why I think it's great that Maxime does this session for you this afternoon on the court with minimum access. We don't want to use that many things, just some bends, a medicine ball, a few things and a few cones, something that everyone has, I'm sure, in their tennis centers or academies. So that makes more sense. Trust me, if what I say doesn't make sense, it will make sense with this guy later. Thank you. I'm going to use this microphone. I'm not going to read my presentation, but I felt like for the third time here at the AITA workshop, I had to give a few words in your language, the local language. So I think the pronunciation is not so bad, but I'm definitely reading this. Me AITA or sube logoko danyabat detaho. Durbagye se muje hungrezi me bolna podega lekine aglebar merihindi betaro. That's it for the Hindi. Now let's go in English if you guys are okay. Tennis, I think everybody agrees that it's a very important component of tennis. The importance of fitness in tennis has maybe become even bigger in the past decade, if not 20 years. We've all noticed the difference now in tennis physically. We talked about it yesterday with the two speakers, Alexander and Hans-Peter, where they showed you how most of the points, especially on the pro circuits, were getting shorter. This is definitely true, but not too confused with not needing fitness because the points are not so long. Actually, when you develop a very fast game, such as a serve and volleyer, you need maybe even more fitness, more explosivity, more speed on the court, right, to reach the net as fast as possible. So, and you've seen it, you just see the body. It's not just in tennis, in many other sports. You can look at football, the body type that you used to have 20 years back is not the same as what you see today. So it's almost something that at least we believe in at the academy is the base for any beginner, for any young player. It's you would almost do as much, if not more, fitness in the first years of tennis, around 10-year-old, when the kid starts, than actually tennis practice. It's as important, if not more. I really want to insist on this. As I wrote, strength, speed, agility, endurance, all of these are the components needed to make a champion, or at least to make a good player. Now, I just wanted to say 2-3 words on fitness in India. Now, that's just, don't take it for total granted and all, that's just my observation. I think that applies to lots of countries too. But I've also noticed that, as Gary said, by sending lots of players to US college from many different countries, including India, I think we would all agree that Indian players have a lot of skills. They do. I see it with all the US coaches. Every time I try to sell them, if I can say, send them an Indian player, they're always excited about the skills. They're excited about their doubles abilities, the volleys, incomparable with European players on that side. But their second question is very often, what are they like physically? Can they hold long practices? Can they play 3-hour matches and then play doubles? Because the game is very physical also in the US. So that's also often the question which comes back in. And the example of Indian cricket Okay, so my knowledge is not that big, but from what I understood, you guys tell me if I'm right, 20 years back your national team was already maybe one of the best in the world, but your bowlers were really known to be exceptional skills. But your field players, I believe, were known to be pretty bad, which doesn't require much skills, requires fitness, jumping, agility, coordination, endurance, speed. I'm sure that has changed in the past 20 years. But I just feel like, I don't know, I don't have the full explanation. It's just something that I notice, that in general the skill level is really high and not the fitness. And in a way, I find it a little bit sad because fitness might be the only thing we can control. It's the only thing that with no talent, with no really abilities, we can improve on. We can all work hard, following a good plan, sticking to it, and make a difference. You know, maybe I'm never going to be able to have a backhand as good as Djokovic. Probably, for sure, actually. But I'm sure I can catch up physically, probably not the same also, but I can catch up on that work. Anybody of us can catch up on that if we work hard and work with the right plan. So while some people would use, and I don't want to come up as contradictory with what the actual nutritionist told you yesterday, but he had a small talk on genes. And I don't know, I'm not a scientist, I'm not going to contradict science. There might be things, there might be some genes that are more inclined to this and that, but I feel like since the fitness work, and I've spoken with lots of coaches in India, and they even tell me that they know more about India than me, of course. Since they tell me that fitness is not done properly from an early age, I feel like, well, maybe we should use the gene excuse or explanation, maybe in 10 years, if everybody does the fitness right, and still there is no improvement, then maybe we can look at this. But I don't want it to become an excuse or something, because I see it in Europe, in my country, in France, in Portugal at the academy, with a lot of diversity, a lot of people with different origins playing and following this European general kind of way of training, with lots of fitness from an early age on. I see all of them evolving into good players, regardless of their skin colors and origins. So that's why I really want you guys to focus on the plan, trying to apply this plan, this fitness plan, and then we'll see, we'll talk in 10 years. The training methods, I'm going to talk about the one that we use at the academy. As I wrote, it's a matter of choice. So I'm not coming up as this is the only way. There are different ways, many different methods. And the main two are the ones I wrote, the block periodization, which is basically the kind of plan where you would say, now I want to go for 1 month, work on my endurance, and maybe for 3 weeks on my coordination, agility, and then I'll go for speed, different blocks like that. The reason we don't believe this is the best way to go is because this is going to help you peak in terms of performance at a certain point. So you end up basically, say, working for 1 month on endurance really hard. After 1 month, you're super endurance. But now what else do you need? So you are like 10 out of 10 in endurance, but 0 in the rest. So that applies to us more for sports like powerlifting. I have a competition on October 2nd. I need to lift 200 kilos. I'm going to do a block periodization plan specifically to pick on October 2nd and lift those 200 kgs. But for tennis, we actually need to be good physically on the course of maybe a season of 8 months, 10 months. So you'd rather be 7 out of 10 in endurance, in strength, in agility, in everything, than being 10 out of 10 in one thing and then 0 on the rest. You know how complex is tennis, how you need to be good in everything. So this is why we went for the conjugate method. It's also called the ready-to-play method in the US. I heard hybrid method. It's a method that I'm obviously going to describe now. The other thing that we really like with that one is that you can apply it to all ages and levels. Of course, with different kinds of weights. You know, you're tweaking, you're not going to have a very young kid lifting weights. You're going to use bands. I'm going to explain in a second. But that's something you can use for everybody. Conjugate method, here you go. Do not think that you have necessarily to go from max strength to speed in that specific order. This is a good order that we usually follow, but you'll see that you can tweak and change a few things here and there. You go from force all the way to work on the velocity. So it starts with the maximal strength, goes down to strength speed, peak power. Actually, as you go down, you get closer to more tennis specific. Everything is needed, the base is on top, and as you get closer to velocity, you arrive more on drills like on-court footwork, speed, which is more tennis related. You first prepare your body all the way to speed. Let's go into each and every segment of it. Maximal strength, I think everybody knows what it is. Just trying to lift as much as I can on bench press, doing squats. I'm basically getting my body ready to hold. You're not going to ask your players to go a single leg drop if the knee is not solid, if the muscles are not ready to accept the charge. So you start with this. This doesn't mean, especially for kids, that you need to do weights. You'll go with bends, with no weight, working on the technique first. But I guarantee you, I'm sure all of you know that if now I ask all of you to do 50 squats like that with no weights, tomorrow you're sore. I'm sore too. So, you don't have to think when you see maximal strength that you have for sure to go in the gym and use a lot of weights. It's important because it's a foundation of the house. I put the little house logo. Foundation of your body, it's like a house. You build the wall first, the foundation, then the walls, step by step. So you first build the body, get the body ready for the rest of the training. Afterwards, you get into the strength speed. The strength speed is basically the same thing as maximal strength, but in movement. So now we're getting closer to tennis already. We're not specifically in the gym just lifting weights. We're having heavy weight and we push it. The sleds, like you see on the picture, is the best example. But if you don't have sleds, you'll see this afternoon with our fitness coach and nutritionist Maxime on court, how you can do it with no weights. We're not going to be in the gym this afternoon. We're going to show you tricks so you can do it on court. With the bend, the point is to go as fast as you can with weight, with resistance, but you're not going to go fast. If you go fast, that means you don't have enough resistance, okay? So I'm giving 100%, I'm pushing as hard as I can, a heavy load. Afterwards, you get into the big power. The big power, everybody has heard of plyometric work? Plyometry, yeah? Okay. Plyometry, two different things, eccentric and concentric. Eccentric is when I accept the charge. So if I show you with my arm, I'm extending my biceps. Eccentric, I'm accepting a charge. I'm catching that football. I'm accepting the charge. Concentric, I'm coming back here. My biceps is working that way. Right here, my tricep is doing the other way. Here,